Welcome to ReVoicing the Future, a Women of NAMM podcast, presented by AKG. Just as one revoices a chord, ReVoicing the Future creates a completely new perspective on the invaluable notes that make up the whole. It will uplift women's voices in the music products industry, which have earned their time to be the root of the chord. Once a month, you can catch productive and valuable conversations with women working in manufacturing, retail, the nonprofit sector, music education, touring, and overall women who inspire us. Together, we can help shape the future of our industry, one interval at a time. This podcast is co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olsen. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to ReVoicing the Future. I'm your host, Natalie Morrison. Thank you for tuning in as always. It's just me this month, but I have a really special episode cooked up and prepared for you. And I'm really excited to dive into what that is about. But before we get started, I did want to take a moment to pay tribute to the incredible Lori Sapini, who unfortunately passed away last month. Lori was the owner and president of Sensini Music in Wichita, Kansas, and she has been an active member in our industry for years. She served as the president of RPMDA in 2009, and she also served on the NAMM board of directors from 2011 to 2014. On top of that, Lori was actually the very first person to accept the Dealer of the Year award during NAMM's Top 100 Dealers in 2011. So thank you, Lori, for all that you have contributed and done for the music products industry. You will be terribly missed. And on behalf of ReVoicing the Future and Women of NAMM, we send Lori's family all of the love and also all the love to everyone in the Sensini family. Today's episode, we are talking about Women's Equality Day. Well, sort of talking about Women's Equality Day, but in honor of Women's Equality Day on August 26th, this month's episode dives into that a little bit. So before I give more detail on the origin of this conversation, I thought I'd give just a brief summary of what Women's Equality Day is. So, Women's Equality Day was first celebrated in 1971, and it was officially designated by Congress as a national day in 1971. But it commemorates the 1920 adoption of the 19th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution, which is the women's right to vote. And I'm not going to go into all the specifics because there is a lot of history there that I think deserves its own conversation. And I encourage everyone to do the research behind the day. But I think it is important for us to talk about it because we're all here listening to this podcast because we want to shine a light and encourage more gender representation in the music industry. So because of that, I'm going to get into my little story here. But a couple of weeks ago, my dear friend, Jeremy Payne, who works for Jam Industries and is heavily involved in a bunch of their employee resource groups, reached out to me wanting to talk about ideas for their company to shine a light on Women's Equality Day. And one of the ideas that we had was to have an episode dedicated to some of the women of Jam Industries. So I worked with Jeremy and we sent out an email to the women who work for Jam and asked if anyone would be interested in participating in this episode. And we wanted to really craft the conversation around the women who wanted to share their story. And we were looking for women at all departments, all job titles, tenures, you name it. And we were able to have a conversation with two of the women of Jam, and I'm really excited to introduce them to you. We have Terri Shaw, who is the director of sales for KMC Music, and Leann Ryan, who is the director of product development for the music people. They are going to explain their roles, their jobs, and what Jam Industries is as a whole. But I just wanted to take this moment to thank Terri and Leann for taking the time to speak with me and share their story and their wisdom with all of you. And I also want to thank Jeremy for reaching out about this idea and being an ally in this conversation. So thank you, Jeremy, for all that you do to support the women in your company and to help amplify their voices, and for coming up with this fantastic idea. So I hope everyone enjoys. Thank you for tuning in. Follow, subscribe, like, you know the drill, and I will see you back here next month. Ta-ta for now. Hi, Terri and Leann. Thank you so much for joining us on ReVoicing the Future. I'm thrilled to have you here.
It's nice to be here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Of course. So before we dive into what you all do at Jam, I would love if someone would give just a brief 30-second overview on what Jam is, because there are a lot of companies within the larger company and distributors and all that. So for those who don't understand Jam, what is it?
So that one is going to take a little bit of explanation, because Jam is a unique distribution network. We're made up of 18 divisions, and we serve markets ranging from pro audio and lighting, consumer electronics, and also musical instruments. The company began in Montreal with its first division in 1972. And at that time, we had less than 10 employees. Over the last 50 years, Jam's grown to become North America's leading distributor for the categories for pro audio, lighting, consumer electronics, and musical instruments, with now over 650 employees and sales exceeding 450 million. So needless to say, the company over the last 50 years has definitely grown a lot.
Definitely.
We've acquired many divisions over the years, including KMC and Davitt Hanser, which are the divisions that I work with, and the Music People, which is where Leann works. In addition to being a distribution company for North America, we also sell internationally with some brands that we own, such as Washburn Guitars, Randall Amplifiers, Rhythm Tech Percussion, and a few other brands. Even though the company has grown so much and sales are so much bigger than what they were, Jam's core culture has still remained very much the same and is focused on employees and customers. In 2018, Jam was named one of Canada's best managed companies by Deloitte. And I think Leann and I would both agree with that, because it's definitely a great company to work for.
Love that. That's amazing. Thanks for the overview, because there's so many different companies that all kind of funnel into this one big company. So I think it's great that we have just a solid explanation.
Yeah, definitely so many divisions.
Yes. Amazing. So now that we've given just a general overview of what Jam is, I'd love for you both to give an overview of your journey into the music industry and what you do today.
Okay, I'll start. So I actually didn't start my career with the goal or intention of being in the music industry. I happened to grow up in an area which had a large musical instrument manufacturing company there. And after college, I was hired by them and started working just as an assistant in the accounting department, and fell in love with the industry. So it wasn't really my intent to be in the music industry, but that once I got started in the music industry, I fell in love with the people and just the passion. And, the music industry in general is a large family, I find. So, I found it amazing to be watching a show on TV and see the products that we were manufacturing played by artists all over the world, and going to a concert and you would see musicians playing the product. And then just as I got to know the people more in the industry, both from other suppliers and manufacturers as well as the retailers I was working with, it just does feel like a big family. You get to know everyone, and all the people I find in the industry are so passionate about what they do and they love their jobs, and it doesn't feel like you're going to work every day. So while I didn't intend to be in the music industry. Once I started, it just felt so easy and I really enjoyed it. So in my previous role, I worked with a music instrument manufacturing company for 21 years. And as I mentioned, I started out just as an administrative assistant in the accounting department. And I worked there for 21 years, worked my way up through the company to be the sales manager for North America. So I was covering both Canada and the US and leading the sales team. And then in 2016, I joined JAM as the director of sales for the KMC Music Division. And then in 2020, I also became the director of sales for the Davitt Hanser division. So that's kind of my history and how I got to where I am today.
That's awesome. It's like you were struck with the music bug early on, kind of feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so hard to imagine working in another industry that isn't as, fun and creative and where you can just enjoy going to work every day.
And also not harping too much on where you were prior, but being in an area where that company was prominent enough for you to get a start in the industry is awesome. Leann, what about you?
Well, I also didn't set out to go into the music industry. I just set out to be a temp at a music place. But I guess all along I was destined for the music industry because my mom and dad actually met at one of his gigs. So my dad was a musician and I remember him playing, jamming with his friends, and we could ask him anything because he'd be like, yeah, okay, yeah, you can have it. And so we'd kind of take advantage of that because he'd just be lost in another world, which I get now. So I didn't set out to be in the music industry, but I ended up just temping. And then kind of like Terri, I loved it. I fell in love with all of the people. I started finding like our product, like she said, even on Netflix last night, I was watching something and I was like, oh, what mic stands are those? It's so funny. You can't go anywhere without, checking that. It's funny. It just captivates everything. And even though I never pursued music as a child, I've had all of my kids take music lessons because I just see the importance of it and the value of it. It's like another language. And it's so universal and it draws people together and it creates memories. And if you hear a song, you're brought back to that time and place. And the music is so powerful and I love the industry. Even though I didn't set out for it, I started temping at this job and they offered me a permanent position, kind of like Terri also, as an executive admin assistant. For my case, it was AKA Jim Hennessy's way around the product procedures. So I would run his projects on the side and kind of streamline them from all the procedures. And then I was promoted to a project manager, again, running projects, but through the process this time. And then we expanded those roles to product line managers so that it didn't just incorporate bringing a product to market, but it was like, what happens to this product after market? What are people's experience with it? And so we now look at our product line managers as caring about the entire life of the product. So I got that title. And then I became very proficient with the pricing and tariffs and everything hit the music industry like crazy. And I was overseeing pricing and sales support. And I learned the other side of our business. So we had the brand, our onstage brand, that on the manufacturing side, that's what I had been familiar with. And then now all of a sudden I'm learning about the other side of our business, which is pro distribution. So we distribute like 280 brands, always growing the number of brands that we distribute. And so I got to learn that side too. That was pretty fascinating. So I expanded my knowledge base. But then when an opening came up to go back over to the product development and marketing side, I absolutely loved that department. That's where I started. And that's just kind of where I found my passion. And so I applied for the position and now I'm the director of product development over product development and marketing. And it suits me so perfectly. I love the job. It completely fulfills me in so many ways. I don't know if I'm ambidextrous. So like part of my brain gets to bounce all crazy and creative brainstorming and, what products would be cool or how can we market this to all kinds of different things. I mean, we just throw everything out and work with the team and be very creative. And then my admin side can kick in and I can do the analytics and I can follow up on those brainstorms and make them a reality and and follow up on everything that I need to. So I love that role. And it's kind of cool to see how I came full circle in not only my dad meeting my mom, through music, but then my career starting in product development, moving around over to sales, and then coming back into product development.
That's amazing. I really love that. And I think that's the beauty too of why Jam reached out wanting to have a conversation like this, because we're getting to learn about you both who work different aspects of the company doing very different things, but you also work together. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, actually, Leann and I have worked together on a project, so it's been awesome. Yeah.
And we did get to work directly last year.
Oh, that's awesome. Even better. I would love to know more about your favorite part of your job is and what the most challenging part of your job is, just so that people get kind of a sense of what it's like to work in product development or be director of sales.
One of my favorite parts of my job are just the people, whether it's the colleagues that I work with internally at Jam or the retailers and buyers that I work with at the retail accounts. The industry is filled with so many amazing people, and I really enjoy that side of it. I would say the other favorite part of my job is also one that I would consider the most challenging, and that's the constant change in the industry. When I look back to what the industry was when I started over 20 years ago, compared to what it is now, how we sell the products, how the products are marketed, how consumers buy the products. There have been so many changes over the years. And so I love the fact that it's constantly changing and I'm always growing. I'm learning new things. I'm having to adapt to different environments and no 2 days are the same. So I love that. But then again, it's also probably the most challenging part of the job because sometimes you feel like you need a crystal ball to look into the future and see how are consumers going to buy tomorrow? How are they going to buy a year from now? What's changing in the world and what's going to happen with supply chain? And there are so many things that you kind of have to look ahead to. So it's kind of both. It's one of the favorite parts of my job that things are changing and it's ever evolving and there's always something new that you have to look at. And then it's also one of the most challenging parts of the job.
Especially after the past several years, the industry has just completely changed in a blink of an eye.
Absolutely. And if you look 20 years ago, people were just starting to shop online. So at that point, when you were selling into retailers, it was mostly for brick and mortar stores. It was your whole mindset was how are consumers going to shop when they go into a physical store? How do they want the products displayed? What assortment should they have? And then, now with online shopping, it's a completely different mindset. And you have to be able to do both. And you have to be able to constantly just change and evolve and adapt to what's happening in the market. It's very energizing every day. It's always different. So I would say that's one of the favorite parts of my job. And as I said, also one of the most challenging. And then the people. Over the years, I've worked with so many retailers and you get to know them and you develop relationships with them and you work with them so closely to just help grow their business. Because as a salesperson, you're not just trying to sell your product into them, you're trying to make sure you sell them the right product that's going to sell through to their customers. And so it's a partnership and you develop that relationship and that trust and so many friendships over the years. So those are kind of the things that I really enjoy about my job.
It's the best of both worlds, but it's also a double-edged sword at the same time. And it keeps you on your toes. So it's
definitely keeps you on your toes. Yes.
Never dull. What about you, Leann?
My favorite part of the job is definitely like Terri, working with passionate, creative people. I love the people that I work with in my company and even the vendors, the customers, and everybody that I've met in the industry. So I'd say that definitely one of my favorite parts is that. And I also love a challenge and problem solving. So I like to be empowered to solve problems across lots of different areas. And kind of like what Terri said, it keeps me on my toes. No 2 days are the same. And that's something that I love and I find fulfilling and challenging every day. And also what I would say is the most challenging things. Keeping people motivated to stay passionate and creative when things get hard, when sales are down or the numbers aren't quite working in our favor, or there's just tons of challenges like we've seen, just continuing to motivate them to stay passionate and stay creative, because that's so important and key. So that's one of the most challenging things. And then also problems at the core of it is that's the nature of the beast. So it's challenging. So what I love is also very challenging. And yeah, the cool thing about Jam is if they figure out that you like to solve problems, they let you.
That's good.
The most frustrating part for me is I like to solve problems. I like to be part of problem solving. So if I don't have all of the information or I'm left out of certain conversations and I'm brought in just at the end, that can be frustrating.
I can imagine that. We'll dive into that a little bit more a bit later. But what I was excited about when we brought this idea to you both was we really wanted to hear from you and topics that you wanted to discuss. And then as we evaluated, we saw a couple of themes that we wanted to touch on. So I want to start with the first theme of work-life balance. And we talk about work-life balance all the time. And it's one of those conversations that you can't just have it once and then be done with. We got to keep talking about it. So twofold question. So I'll start with the first part. What does work-life balance look like in your careers currently?
I'll go first. I love our hybrid schedule for the job right now. We work 3 days remote, and then we have 2 days in the office. So for me, that very much helps work-life balance. So even though I still might work through lunch or work a little bit late or start a lot early, it allows me to do that out on my patio, enjoying the sunshine, petting my dog. So that helps quite a bit in work-life balance. And then also I work hard and then play hard. So the job does let me leave it there. It's not so stressful that I have it dwelling over my head all the time. So I can enjoy the outdoors after, either go golfing with friends or hiking, or I have 5 kids and 2 grandkids that I love, and they also help me keep that work-life balance because I love hanging out with them.
That's awesome.
So I would say the same. For me, I work remotely full-time because I'm on the East Coast and I'm too far from any of our corporate offices. I work from home 5 days a week. When I'm not traveling, I do travel a lot for my job. And I love working from home. I know some people love it, some people hate it. I love it. I have my office set up. I feel like I can be very productive. One of the downsides some days could be that I tend to start early. And as Leann mentioned, a lot of days I work through lunch. I may work into the evening because it's easy. My office is all set up. And if I don't have things on the go in the evening, I may get caught up on some extra stuff. But the other side of that is being home. As Leann mentioned, if I want to go outside and get some fresh air, I'll take my laptop outside for an hour. Jam is great to work with the flexibility. One of the things that they do in the summertime, so we can enjoy a little more of the fresh air and sunshine, is we do summer hours. So every week you get an extra 3 hours that you can book off any day just to be done work early, go enjoy the pool for the afternoon, that sort of thing, which I love. And I work hard. I work a lot of hours, but I also make sure that I use my vacation time. I know some people will go the full year and not use their vacation time and bank it and just work the full 52 weeks. But I definitely make sure that I use my time and take time for myself and take time with the family. As Leann mentioned, I also have 4 kids and 3 grandkids, and my family is close by and we love to spend time together. So I make sure that I prioritize that time and really enjoy spending time with them.
So you're both mothers to several kids. So how has motherhood impacted your job?
I'll chime in there. I think that in order to be a mother and work in the type of position that we work in, you have to be hyper organized. You have to be so organized, very good time management skills. You have to be able to prioritize. I look back because my kids are all grown at this point, and I look back and I like to think that I did a really good job while they were growing up with my balancing work and my home life. And I've had some conversations with my daughter now that she's my youngest, now that she's grown, and they don't feel like they missed out on anything while they were growing up. As I mentioned, with being the director of sales and previously with the North American sales manager, I've always traveled a lot for my job. And I just tried to make sure that I was home for any important events. So I didn't miss birthdays. I didn't miss important holidays. If I was away, we talked on the phone every night. I had to make sure that at home, everything was well organized. So if I was going to be away for the week, we had 4 kids that were all in sporting activities. And obviously my husband couldn't get to all 4. So it was just making sure there were drives lined up and everybody knew the schedule and everything was planned out ahead of time. So I think with balancing a family life and a busy work life, it's the organization side. It's making sure that you're managing the time and you're really prioritizing what is the most important thing to be doing at this given point and being super organized, which I think now that my kids are grown, it still serves me so well in my job because I am organized. I know how to manage my time and how to get more done and how to be efficient and how to prioritize. So I think being a mom really helps you in being in the leadership roles.
I completely agree. Like, I second everything that Terri said about being organized and having it actually help you to be a better leader. You're compassionate. You're a compassionate leader because you're leading children and your direct reports, your children mean the world to you and you want to empower them. You want to see them grow. You want to see them flourish just like you do any direct reports, I would hope as a leader in a company. So yeah, same as Terri. And I think also something that I'm very proud of is I have 3 girls. So it's my 3 youngest are girls and they watched me advance in my career and they got to see what does that look like for a woman to be put into leadership roles. And I think it empowered them to look at their lives and want to shoot high. One of them just got her master's. Their demeanor and the things that they wanted to achieve were so much higher than I ever even dreamed for them. And then another one is going to law school. And they always talk about how it's so cool to have women empowered and, like boss ladies. And it's really neat to see that changing and to see that desire and to know that a lot of the hurdles that Terri and I probably saw when we first started our careers have been smoothed out for the next generation. And that makes me very happy and excited to see.
And what a beautiful thing too, to see that your daughters are looking to you as their direct inspiration for wanting to do the best that they possibly can for their own careers. I think that's such a beautiful thing. And I also love, Terri, too, how you said you were talking with your daughter and seeing if it had an effect on them growing up. And I think that part of the conversation isn't talked about as much because you think you're doing the best that you can for your kids, but you don't actually know how they feel until
That's right.
later on. So that must be really validating in that sense.
Yeah, and it was an interesting conversation with her because 2 of my daughters have actually gone into the military. So they've gone into really non-typical roles that women would not be in. Mm. And my youngest, who I had the conversation with, she went into firefighting. So she's a firefighter for the Air Force. And what she said was, watching you kind of break the gender barrier some in your career, because when I started, it was, and it still is, but it was really male dominated, especially in the sales aspect. So that's what she said, watching you break some of those gender barriers made me realize that I could do what I wanted. Mm. It didn't matter that it was a male specific career. If that's what I wanted, I knew I could go for it.
That's beautiful.
So it's really nice to have those conversations and see that it impacted them positively as opposed to negatively.
Totally. And I think that's a really great transition because I want to touch on women's experiences in the music business and how you've been affected and persevered through it all. So Terri, you mentioned that sales at the beginning of your career was fairly male dominated. And you've also mentioned in communication with me too, that it's important we encourage women to pursue sales roles. So what about the feminine qualities and skills makes great salespeople?
So there are a lot. So I'm going to try to summarize this because in all honesty, this is an area I could probably talk about forever.
Go for it. The floor is yours.
There are so many traits that women have that make them great salespeople. So again, I'm going to try to keep this short, but sales management has typically been male dominated. It's been a male dominated world, not just in the MI industry, but overall. And the majority of the time when I've been in sales meetings from probably 25 years ago, when I think back to that time, I would have most definitely been the only female salesperson in the meeting. It has gotten better over the last 25 years. And now there are times when I'm in a sales meeting with a large group that there may be another female involved, which is wonderful. But it's still predominantly male dominated in the sales world. On the sales management side, there are more women getting into like the customer service aspect of sales or starting out in sales. But when you get to the sales management or executive level, it's still predominantly males. And most people think of a salesperson. I know a lot of people, what comes to mind is like the car salesman, the smooth talker who they tend to talk a lot and they try to overpower the conversation. But it's really the people that have mastered the art of listening to the customers that are typically the most successful in sales. And the people that listen, they build their relationships with their customers, they find out what their customer needs, and women tend to be good listeners. If you do research on it, women actually have a genetic predisposition for just having improved listening skills. And women also tend to be very good at interpreting nonverbal communication. So watching, people's facial expressions, their body language, and that plays a big role in knowing, are you having the right conversation with your customer? Are you hitting on the key topics that they want you to hit on? And so that's one of the reasons I think that we really need more women in the sales role is women can listen, they can build that strong bond with the customer, they can build that trust with the customer. A lot of women, at least, tend to be empathizers. They can relate to the buyer and provide them with what they need. As I mentioned, you can build the trust. So I think that women have a lot of strong skills and a lot of strong traits when it comes to being really good salespeople. And I think women also make really good sales leaders. So I'm hoping that we see more women aspire to having careers in the sales area. And I also hope that we see more companies who, will put more females in that position, because I think that if we have more females in that position where they're really able to build that strong bond and that strong trust with their customers and with the people that work for them, they just enhance their business overall. So that's kind of my take on women in sales. I've been in a lot of rooms. I will be honest, I probably tend to be one of the quieter ones when we're sitting in sales meetings, when there's a large group and a lot of people are talking, because I like to listen. I like to hear the customer talk about what their needs are, how their business is doing, what sort of products are selling well for them, what trends they're seeing, that they have certain categories that are increasing, certain categories that are decreasing. Because if I'm going into a meeting with a preconceived idea in my mind that I'm going to sell you 1,000 of this instrument, and I'm overpowering the conversation with selling you just this product, and I'm not listening to you tell me that this particular segment of your business isn't doing well, but this segment is, then I'm missing the opportunity to sell you the products that are really going to work for you. So I think that's one of the biggest traits that women have that help, is just being strong listeners.
I always remember I was told in high school, I think, you don't always have to be the loudest person in the room. Sometimes the quietest people in the room are absorbing the information more. And sometimes if you're the loudest person in the room, you might think you know more than you actually do. So I think it's a really great quality, because I am also always the quiet one in the room. I like to listen and observe and take time to digest what I've listened to before giving my opinion. I think that's a really important quality.
And sometimes if you're in that room, if you're looking around the table and you have one person who's talking a lot, you can actually look at the other people and kind of watch them shut down.
Yeah.
Because if they realize that someone is overpowering the conversation and they're not listening to what their needs are or their wants are, or what's happening in their world, they kind of glaze over and shut down, and you really lose out on that opportunity to find out more about their business.
Yeah. Leann, is there anything that pertains to what we've been talking about that you want to add to where your role intersects with sales?
I mean, absolutely. Our roles definitely intersect. And like Terri, I think listening, I wouldn't have thought of that. I would have said definitely women are suited for these roles. But I think listening in every level of every position is so important. So kind of like Terri, understanding the customer, product development has to understand their customer and they have to listen. And then they have to listen to the sales team on, do they think they can sell this? Do they understand what makes it unique or special? Why did we even decide to do this product? And really listen, because people have gone wrong. Overpowering, like Terri said, I like it, so I'm just going to push it, and not cluing in to all of the different ways. And I think that's what makes women so wonderful, is we tend to work together very well as a team. We don't try to claw over people. We really look for the win-wins. I think a lot of what Terri said in her sales approach is, I want to find the win-win. What do I have that can benefit them? And I think in every single position, it's what do I have in my skill set, in my product line, in my makeup that can help the organization, that can help this person, that can help their company, and always looking for those win-wins. So I think in product development, we also don't have a lot of women in product development. It tends to typically be male dominated, and certainly also in leadership. I'm the only leader other than HR that is a woman in our company at the Music People. And it is unfortunate because women do have a lot of qualities that they can add. Listening was a perfect one. I didn't even have on my thing, but I do know that we can multitask like no other. We have compassion, like Terri hit on for sure. Always looking for that win-win, because we are compassionate and we want what's best for everybody. And I think we tend to do a lot of the back end work without a lot of credit or without pushing our agenda. And that's where I think, honestly, that I would like to see women be a little bit more powerful voice, to empower women to speak up in the meetings, because otherwise sometimes the direction is set in that meeting and all of a sudden we're going in a direction when we didn't get to necessarily speak up and say something otherwise. So I tend to be a little bit more vocal than a lot of my female counterparts. Anna is another vocal one in our company, and I love it because I can count on her. But even in meetings with sales, because we have one every week where everybody's talking, I'll have to stop the conversation and say, what are your customers looking for? What do you think about what we're saying? Because she does tend to be more quiet. And I do notice that in a lot of the women in the business tend to be quiet and let the men hash it out and talk about everything. And we tend to sit back and wait for our turn to talk, and they don't usually give it automatically unless we're assertive. I really want to empower at least 4 women in my company alone. 2 of them are direct reports and 2 are in different departments, but just to empower them to feel confident in their voice and use it.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Leann, you just mentioned that aside from HR, one of the only female leaders in your company, do you feel a pressure for constantly being that role model?
I mean, I truly look to them as being co-leaders. I just don't feel like they found their voice yet. So I don't look at it like I'm necessarily inspiring them, but empowering them. I hope that I could add value to whatever and encourage them. I feel like I'm more of an encourager to them than a role model, because I want them to do it their way. I want them to find their voice. And it's probably not going to sound anything necessarily like my voice. It's going to be their own, and in their own departments or their own unique skill set. And I just want them to shine. I was given that opportunity pretty early on to highlight my skill set and help organize and help get involved in things. And I truly believe that I was given opportunities and encouraged, and I felt like my voice was very important and mattered. And I think that made a big difference. And I think it's really important that that's what I give to the other women in my company.
Absolutely. And I want to dive into this a little bit deeper, but you have had this long path with Jam from entry level now to director. So can you talk a little bit how you navigated the steps of growing internally into the roles that you wanted? Did you have a long game vision in mind, or did it just kind of ebb and flow with what was being presented to you?
I initially was just really happy to have a company that could be so flexible. I had young kids at the time, and honestly, there was times that my daughter slept under my desk because there was a snow day and the school was closing early, but we weren't going to close. So I appreciated the flexibility that the job gave, for sure. And I think that was my only vision at the time, is just getting through it, having a good job, and raising my kids at the time. So I did not have a long-term vision or goal. And even as I mentioned, I was in a completely different department. And then this opening came up and I was like, oh, yay, something I love. Hopefully I'll get it. Luckily, I had spent most of my career in that department. So I had made a lot of relationships with our vendors and our team abroad and gained that trust even from the team internally. So I'm honored to be there. Again, I don't necessarily feel like I'm inspiring them or leading them or like as a role model necessarily, but as a cheerleader and a part of the team that's just has my unique talents that I can bring and help it all come together.
Yeah. We need those. We need cheerleaders. We need people encouraging and empowering us from all sides, because that's the push that people might need to feel comfortable and confident and using their voice. Terri, is there anything you want to share with how you navigated your career changes and whatnot?
So with the company I worked with previously, as I mentioned, I worked my way up through the company, and I was so fortunate to have a couple of great mentors that when I started as an administrative assistant, they just saw my capabilities, my work ethic, and what I was capable of, and really encouraged me to learn more and to push myself and just to grow. So throughout that 20 years, I did so many different roles in that company. I worked as an administrative assistant for a while. I did some artist relations, organizing clinics, that sort of thing. And then I started working as a sales assistant. And my main role there was analyzing numbers and looking at trends and offering ideas on where I saw business going. And it just kind of grew from there. But I was really fortunate to have some strong people behind me and mentoring me and, just sharing their experiences. So I learned so much from them over the years. And then when I came over to Jam, it's the same sort of thing. I've got a couple of people at Jam that are just really strong mentors for me and have helped me grow in this position. And working for Jam, as Leann mentioned, there's the flexibility side, which I love. But then I find that Jam they empower us. They're constantly getting you to think about problems that might come up. And if there's an issue, they want you to think about the solution. And you're always empowered to come up with what that solution could be and just to help move the company forward. They really believe in their people and they give us all the tools to work with. And they're such a great company to work with.
That's awesome. You've both touched on the importance of mentorship and how it played a role in your careers. Why is it important for you to give that back to others?
Well, for me personally, I don't think I would be where I am today without the mentors I had in my career. A couple of the mentors that I've had were in the sales executive positions and were both males. So I've had mentors who have been both males who have helped me grow on the sales side and just developing my skills to do well in that side. But then also as other females in strong positions who have just, as Leann talked about, really encouraged me to have a voice and to speak up more and to recognize what I'm good at and gain more confidence in my abilities. And now I want to be able to share that with the people on my team and people that I work with in the industry. It's so important for everybody at every stage of your life to have a strong mentor, to have someone for a sounding board that you can go to with questions and who is constantly encouraging you and helping you grow. And it never stops. I want to be a good role model for the people that I manage on my team and for any females that I see trying to make their way in the world, whether it's in the music industry or outside, and just empowering them to have a voice and to fight those barriers and really do what they love and be able to do anything they want to in their life. But then also the people on my team, I just want them to know that they can have a voice, they can grow. And I think even people who are already in executive positions or in leadership roles, I'm sure Leann has mentors that she still works with. It's a constant growth happening.
Yeah, I totally agree. Again, and you said it so perfectly. I wouldn't be where I'm at without great mentors. And now I do believe that we're both in positions where we can empower and mentor other people, male and female, but especially women, because they tend to be the more quiet ones, and helping them to find their voice and recognize their importance. A lot of times also they tend to do the more background positions and not the forward facing as much. So again, like sales, some of the leadership positions, product development, some of those ones that are more front facing, I just really want to encourage them to find that voice. And GM is a great company. Some of the things that they do is like succession planning. So it's very intentional, and intentional development is part of its core. And so like right now, even the annual review process where we can focus on each employee and how we can mentor them to overcome any challenges that they're having or reach higher. And we have them come forward and say, what would they like to do? Where do they see themselves going this year? And make it very intentional, that growth and the mentorship. And so I personally love that about the company and empowering women. And like I said, I have 2 direct reports. And I guess that's the thing of what we can do too, is we can see their potential, even if they don't necessarily see their potential yet, and then encourage them. So every single one of them, we're able to review that and see, wow, they have this great skill set and it would benefit so many people in these ways. And maybe we can see that and encourage them when they might not see that in themselves quite yet. Like you said, did you set out to do this? And no, I couldn't have imagined. I definitely did not set my sights this high, nor would I, just because of the place that I was at, but because of really good people that came alongside me and mentored me and empowered me. I have. And it's exciting. And I want other people to have those same kind of stories.
That's wonderful. And again, a full circle moment.
I was reading an article the other day that I found interesting because it said that a male tends to apply for a position if they meet 60% of the requirements in the job. And females tend to only apply for that position if they feel that they meet 100% of the requirements of the job.
Wow.
So it really struck me when I was reading that, because we really need to encourage women to push themselves. You can do it. You can do the job. You can grow. You can really strive for more. And I think women tend to hold back more. In a lot of cases, question our capabilities a lot more. And so that's one of the things that I want to see, is for more women to just feel empowered to get out there and really push themselves and strive for what they want.
I didn't know that. That's a wild fact.
Yeah. A lot of women tend to feel that if you're not 100%, if you don't fit every qualification on the job posting, then maybe you shouldn't apply. But men tend to think differently. According to the article I was reading anyway, men tend to apply if they meet 60% of the requirements.
So one final question for you both. First, I just want to give a shout out to Jeremy Payne, who came to me with this idea to celebrate Women's Equality Day, which is on August 26th this year. I did want to touch on a question around equality and equity. So how do you see ways from the business side for improvements in equity across how companies develop their women employees?
JAM and DCC, which is even above JAM, they have a lot of training for us at all the different levels on equity and diversity in the workplace and how it makes people so much stronger. And I think obviously we see the benefit, and luckily Jam sees the benefit to having women on the team and to empowering us. And I don't know if all workplaces do. I don't think they do necessarily. And so equitable development is so important. Again, women are perceived as being a little bit more in the background, and we're not necessarily encouraged unless we are empowered to use that voice and be heard. And I do think it's harder for women to feel confident and have that powerful voice, even though we have so much to say and so much important things to say. And so I think that we do need to see equitable development, which is basically just saying it doesn't have to be this way, the way that we think it should. I think we should stop and listen to these people and do a lot of training. And importantly, equitable development is easy to talk about and try to identify. And we could put women into certain roles and into leadership roles and stuff. And then another unfortunate consequence for us not being as vocal and speaking out is typically pay scales often vary between women and men because they tend to be more aggressive and assertive, and women tend to be more content and question their abilities, like Terri said, and not ask for it because we just feel like, well, they thought that much, then they'll just do it. So often we see that in payroll, basically. So that would be an easy way that companies can provide equitable development, is just making sure that there's that proper distribution where the women might not ask for it.
Well said. Terri, do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, Leann has covered it pretty perfectly. I would say JAM offers us so many opportunities to grow, whether it's through courses and leadership development and leadership training. And Leann mentioned earlier the succession planning. So I do feel that JAM as a company is really striving to make headways into more gender equality in the industry. I'm sure we still have a ways to go, as all companies do, but I do really feel like they want to have more women empowered to speak up and find their voice, and they really encourage it and try to give us ways to grow and feel like we have a voice.
I agree. And Natalie, you mentioned Jeremy Payne. He's actually one of the people that is very actively involved in a lot of the JAM and DCC, encouraging women. He empowers us. He encourages us. I would not have applied for even this podcast if it wasn't for Jeremy kind of being my cheerleader, I guess, and inspiring that change. So it is really encouraging to see people in our organizations, Stuart. I mean, there's so many all the way up to the top that truly believe in making this happen and seeing things change and getting a stronger team, because all of them agree that an equitable and diverse team, I mean, they use that term all the time, definitely makes for a better team.
That's amazing. I'm glad to see that. I love Jeremy. I have a close relationship with him as well. And I was really excited when he presented this idea to me. And I'm happy that we were able to put it together in a way that can encourage and inspire others within your company and just within the music industry as a whole to see that women have a great place in the industry.
We definitely need more women in the industry.
Yes.
We need more women in leadership roles and empowering other women. And it's a wonderful industry.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for taking the time on this evening to chat with me and share your story and your wisdom. You are both amazing and incredible at what you do. So thank you for being cheerleaders for everyone around you at the company. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for listening to this episode of ReVoicing the Future. You can subscribe to the podcast on all major streaming platforms or visit our website. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things Women of NAMM. This episode was co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olsen. Together, we can help shape the future of our industry, one interval at a time. See you next time.